Cool. So my name is Viktor Hedberg. I work as a senior technical architect at a cybersecurity firm based in Sweden called TruSec. So you'll see a bunch of, logos from TruSec during the presentation. But basically what I do is we perform incident response engagement. And when I say incident response, we're not talking, your run-of-the-mill Microsoft 365 kind of incidents, but more like full-blown ransomware, please come help us kind of incidents. So we do forensic investigations, Beck cases, a lot of them recently, ransomware, industrial espionage, and you name it. We've seen a lot, and we've done some really cool stuff about it. But what I'm here to talk to you guys about today, this morning, the afternoon, I don't know exactly what kind of, we're actually past lunch, so afternoon-ish. So this session is about one of the findings that I did last year, I think it was, when I was playing around with the Azure AD Graph APIs, soon to be discontinued and removed, but yet they still work. So what I wanted to do is that I wanted to create my own PowerShell module to basically just export all the data from a tenant in order to write a reasonably good report on, hey, these are the security findings in this tenant. And what came to my knowledge writing that PowerShell module is that you can actually dump the entire conditional access policy framework as a regular user in any tenant, anywhere, still to this day. So, as I said, quick, who am I? I work at TruSec as an incident responder, security researcher. I'm a Microsoft security MVP in identity and access and cloud security technology areas. That's an image of me when I had more hair. 3 kids in, I have a slightly receding hairline, hence the cap. I'm also an author. I've published 2 books on Microsoft technologies. One of those books will get a revamped 2nd edition soon. So keep your eyes peeled for Mastering Microsoft Microsoft Defender XDR 2nd edition on Amazon. But this is what this session will be all about. So we'll talk a little bit about the PowerShell module that I was trying to create and still working on to make it run ish smoothly. It's always juggling in my line of work, where you have to work like 16 hours a day, one day, and then do nothing for the rest of the week because, well, the incident died down or we were done or whatever. So it takes a toll on you, and you're not always the first one to go, hey, I'm gonna improve my code base. My code looks like shit, spaghetti code, whatever you want to call it, but it works, and that's good enough for me. So we'll talk a little bit about the tool itself. We'll talk a little bit about the Azure AD Graph APIs, why they're dangerous, and hopefully they will get decommissioned soon enough. The findings that I found, how MSRC responded, and what, if anything, can be done to detect and prevent this from happening in your tenants. So the tool itself, it's a PowerShell module based on Azure AD Graph APIs used in different modules all the time. So, the Azure AD module, the MS Online module, the Azure AD Preview. But basically, what I wanted to do is, a lot of the things that I do at work is to look at environments and say, these environments look yay or nay in terms of cybersecurity. So how mature is the tenant from a cybersecurity point of view, and all of that. And to save us the time of, clicking about all the portals, this value says this value says that, we wanted to write a PowerShell script to do all of that for us and basically export everything into JSON blobs, where we can manipulate or use the data to create a report quite smoothly. So the commandlets that you see on the screen right now, these are all the commandlets that works right now. So we can export all the admins, company info, conditional access policies, devices, directory settings, groups, users, etc., etc., etc. So basically anything related to Azure AD or Entra ID, as it's now called, out of respect for the artist formerly known as Azure AD, I will keep referring to Azure AD because that's what I think it should be called. So basically dumping all of the Azure AD configuration into JSON blobs. You can do whatever you want with it. It's not released yet publicly, except for one function, the export to conditional access policies. That's actually released on my GitHub repo, and I'll show you the share you the link after this session. I probably need to merge the or commit a new version but I'll share the link so you can try this out in your own tenant. So as I said, it's not self-sustained at the moment. I'm currently working on getting it self-sustained. So basically just connecting to the APIs, getting your access token, and then leveraging all the available APIs to export all of this data. But for the time being, it's relying on 3 separate modules. So Azure AD Preview, MS Online, and AAD Internals, which is, if you don't know about this module, I highly recommend you playing around with it. It's super fun. It's composed by a friend of mine in Finland called Nestori Synime, also known as Dr. Azure AD on Twitter. You can do a lot of shady stuff with this PowerShell module, which is also why Windows Defender is blocking it nowadays because of some Trojan or whatever they want to call it. But as I said, the module itself, it's not publicly available at this point. It probably will be sometime in the future, but it's not complete enough for me to share it with the rest of the world. However, the commandlet that we're going to talk to great extent during this session is available, and I'll share the link with you, as I said. So some example outputs from this PowerShell module. You can see this is a conditional access policy, require MFA to join devices, the state of it, which users are included, user actions or auth contexts, grant controls, etc., etc., etc. Everything that is located inside of that conditional access policy or every available setting is being exported. And same goes for, hey, these are the assigned roles in your tenant. So we have a couple of global administrators, we have a couple of domain name administrators, etc., etc., etc. So just saving you the time of going through the portal and clicking, hey, who's the global admin? Export that list, export another list, export this. We get all of it dumped into a JSON file. And we see here a dynamic group where we get the membership query and all the bells and whistles, basically. Another conditional access policy. So this is a privileged access workstation policy. I usually talk about the significance of using privileged access workstations, whether it's in your on-premises Active Directory or your cloud-based Azure Active Directory. You need to use a PAW. And if I were a threat actor, being able to dump your conditional access policies, I can now see which of these PAWs I need to compromise in order to steal a token as a global admin or exert your global admin permission rights from your device. So to me, the stuff that we're going to talk about here is it gives me quite a headache and a tummy ache, but fear not, there are things we can do about them. So as you can see down here in the highlighted field, we have the device ID and the device name. So if you're an admin in this tenant or if you're a user in this tenant, you can get all this information right off the bat by just connecting to the correct APIs and constructing the correct query. So the culprit at hand, the AAD Graph API, this is old information, like, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe. They said, oh, well, June 30th, 2023, that's the deadline. It will enter a retirement phase, and 6 months after June 30th, we will decommission it, basically. It's been postponed once since then. So March 30th, 2024 was the new cutoff date for the retirement, the life cycle of this PowerShell module or these APIs themselves. Some of the features are unavailable right now using the Azure AD Graph API, but the bulk of them are still available, still working. And these PowerShell modules are still working as they should. Well, save for, you can't assign licenses via these PowerShell modules anymore. So fingers crossed that Microsoft will finally pull the plug. However, I'm an adamant doubter of Microsoft's timeline in this case, given that they've postponed it so many times, and the fact that the Microsoft Graph PowerShell modules are nowhere near as complete. We'll see what happens, but fingers crossed that they'll be able to pull the plug in a reasonable amount of time. So moving over to the findings. This is what I was doing. I was playing around. So you can see this is just a regular invoke web request, invoke REST method kind of PowerShell call towards the graph windows.net endpoint, which is the Azure AD Graph API. And what we're doing here is that this is me as an end user looking at conditional access policies in any given tenant at any given time, provided that I'm actually a user in that tenant. So you can see here we have a block policy, which is blocking country ISO codes BY and RU, and there's another geoblock code policy that's blocking other things and things like that. So given that I'm able to do this as an end user and actually dump the policies, that also gives me input into looping through those policies, finding out, okay, what does this policy actually do? Because as we can see here on the screen, we have a location that's just a GUID. We have users all, but I mean, the location, or if it was a user group and everything like that, or particular users or particular roles, we wouldn't be able to see that right off the bat because, well, we can't convert that GUID to whomever that is right off the bat. However, what we can do is that we can loop through these policies one by one using the other PowerShell modules that Microsoft has created for us. So every GUID can be mapped to a user using Azure AD PowerShell. So like get Azure AD user, object ID, bam, there's your user. So this is just another way of doing it. You can see here, we have the Azure AD internals PowerShell module. We actually see that, hey, this geoblock policy is a conditional access policy. It's not like a security baseline or anything like that. It's a conditional access policy. And we also have another policy down there called exclude role test. So this is from my test tenant. I do a lot of shady stuff in that environment, so don't hate me for the naming convention. But as you can see there, you have the roles in GUID format. We have exclusion of roles and all of that. So if I'm a threat actor and I gain this type of access, I'm super interested in actually getting to know, okay, you're including these admin roles, but not this one. Okay, what can I do with this admin role here? Can I pivot? Can I do other things? Oh, there's an app admin. I can, reset a secret for the Azure AD Sync application, and now I own your entire tenant. Things like that, which is doable as an end user in this case. So dumping CA policies as an admin, sure, but what about users? So turns out, yep, as I said, as long as you have user level access to the tenant, you can get an access token, and that access token is usable to export conditional access policies. I did report this to the MSRC. It was considered like a vulnerability because I got a case number, a submission number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But their response was that you reported that a user in the tenant can list all conditional access policies by using its login credentials. This seems by design as a valid user in the tenant can list all conditional access policies. We have closed this case. So according to the MSRC, this is not a vulnerability at all. This is by design. But if we jump into my little demo environment here, we can see that, okay, I'm connected to Azure AD via the regular Azure AD PowerShell module. If I were to try to get the conditional access policies using this PowerShell module, it would say error execution, error occurred while executing blah, 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 code access denied. Your account does not have access to this report or data, blah, 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 because you're a regular user, you're not supposed to do this, basically, forbidden. We can also see I'm signed into this tenant as the same user. We have my own account, Viktor at hedbergtech.se. As you can see up here, it's the same user. I'm just a user. I cannot do anything administrative because I don't have that level of permissions. So you see security is blurred out. I can't click it. I can't get there. I'm not supposed to be able to do this. Ergo, if you ask me, this should be patched, but I don't work for the MSRC. I just like to break stuff. So let's try this thing as an end user and see if it actually works. Sorry, I forgot to import my own PowerShell module. Give me 2 seconds. There we go. I did not have the correct. Okay, I need to do some things. Sorry, this is the live demo gods playing with me once more. We actually need to disable some things here because otherwise Defender Antivirus will break my demo once more. So we import this module, AAD internals. That's like so. And we go to export the conditional access policies once more. So we'll sign in. This is kind of nice, right? You're getting the MFA prompt from the PowerShell prompt. And let's see here. Where's my little authenticator app? Okay, no notifications found. Oh, sorry, wrong authenticator app. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. And I'm entering the number on my app. We're approved, and we're gathering the policies. So granted that the tenant has a lot of conditional access policies, this will take an absurd amount of time because we go through each setting in each policy, looking at, hey, who's the user in scope, who's the admin in scope, which devices are in scope, which applications, blah, 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 all of that. But we got a result. So let's see here. Get content. So as you can see here, we have all the conditional access policies in readable form in that particular JSON file. Some of this did not work, it seems. I do apologize, but you get the point, right? We're not supposed to be able to do this, we can see here, here's the PAW policy. We have excluded users looked up. We have the GUIDs of the excluded users. We have included roles, company administrator, security admin, conditional access admin, included applications all, and which device ID is this PAW policy scoped on. So all of this is real nice for any threat actor to get their hands on, because they want to try to find out, okay, you're using conditional access policies to secure your environment or secure access to your environment. What gaps do you have? Well, we can look at it right here, right? We get all the gaps right off the bat directly in our little JSON blob. But according to Microsoft, this is not a vulnerability. So if we look inside the little JSON file itself, you can see this is the same kind of information we just had in PowerShell. All readable, and you just need to be a regular user in the tenant in order to do this. So I presented this at another conference like a year ago, and somebody asked me, hey, does the same apply for guest users? No, it doesn't. So if you have the setting for guest users to say they can only read like this, they can only read memberships of their own directory objects, things like that. A guest user would not be able to do this. However, if you were to change the user type of said guest user to member instead of guest, they will have the same readability as anyone else in that tenant. So another thing to note in this talk is that look through the guest users in your Entra ID tenants or Azure AD tenants and make sure that they're guests, like guests, not members, because member permissions, well, they can recon your entire Entra ID tenant in seconds. So that's what I found out. That's what Microsoft told me, that basically we won't do anything about it because, well, it's a dying product. We won't fix it. So in terms of detections, what can we actually do to detect when this happens in a tenant? Well, we can use sign-in logs. We see the application. We see the application ID. So we can actually use those bits of information to construct a hunting query to say that if you're not an admin and you're logging into Azure Active Directory PowerShell, we pop an alert. That gives us some idea of, you know, a regular user doing non-regular user things in your tenant. That will work, sure. However, the possibility of getting false positives is astronomical, to say the least, because given any given company won't work the same as any other given company, right? So you'll have creative users doing PowerShell queries because they're interested or whatever. So this might just light up your Defender portal like a Christmas tree. But you can detect it. In terms of prevention, however, there's not that much we can do about it. I did come up with one quite cool idea on how we can actually prevent this from happening, and that is by registering the Azure AD PowerShell application to your Entra ID tenant itself as an enterprise application. So if we look inside here, you'll see we have a bunch of applications which are natively there because, well, it's an Entra ID tenant doing Entra ID stuff. So if we look for Azure Active Directory PowerShell, you can see that I basically just ran the commandlet like register Azure AD application, provided the application ID, presto, here we have it. And what we can do now is that we can actually say, okay, which users are allowed to use this application inside of this tenant? So for the demo purposes, you can see I added my own regular user account. But if I were to remove myself, well, I can't do that because I'm not an admin. Give me 2 seconds. We'll need to log in as an admin to actually do that. Just need to grab some passwords. Another fun story or a little tidbit about my demo environment is that I locked myself out of my own demo environment in the beginning of this summer. I created a device-bound passkey. That device-bound passkey did not exist on my phone, according to my phone, and I was blocked from accessing my own tenant. So 2 weeks of talking to Microsoft support, and I finally got access to my own environment again. It's always fun, unless it happens to yourself. So Azure Active Directory PowerShell, if we revoke the access of my own regular user account here, and we try to do the same thing once more, we need to provide multi-factor authentication again. Might be that I'm too quick and this will still work, but no, it didn't. So as you can see, I was not able to do it because I am not allowed to use the enterprise application Azure Active Directory PowerShell. So this is quite an effective way of preventing this from ever happening inside of any given tenant at any given time. Just, register Azure AD application, provide the application ID itself, and make sure that you keep tight control on who can actually use Azure Active Directory PowerShell module in your tenant. Because this will prevent any threat actor to do it, unless, of course, they compromise the right account who has the right level of access. But that's when you should have conditional access policies preventing that from happening in the first place. Like you need to be on a PA, you need to use strong authentication, things like that. So, as I said, in terms of detection, we have detection capabilities for it. It will provide you with a bunch of false positives. There's no doubt about it. Prevention capabilities, yeah, we do. But I'm not saying that it will work smoothly in any tenant because, as I said, if your workforce is using this PowerShell module to do whatever they need to do, you might impact business. But there are ways to actually prevent this from happening. And that's basically what I had to show you guys. I know I'm 10 minutes ahead of schedule, so I'll stop there, I think, and open up to see if there's any questions.
TriMark Vision is the next evolution in the identification of security issues across all your Active Directory environments. The TriMark Risk Score is based on real-world expertise of TriMark's industry-leading Active Directory and Microsoft Cloud security experts. Most importantly, TriMark Vision helps you to answer the questions facing your Active Directory security posture today, such as what risk do I have in my environment? What actionable steps can I take today, tomorrow, this week to best mitigate my risk of an attack on my Active Directory? What should I be most concerned about within my Active Directory forest where it concerns potential attack vectors? What is the current security posture of all my AD forests? TriMark Vision, visibility at the speed of operations.